So Tna Impact was a tape show in Las Vegas, Nevada. And the show begins with Austin Aries coming to the ring. Aries gets on the mic and says that some people love him and some people love to boo him, but everyone has to respect him. And he says that he outsmarted everyone and created a buzz. He says that last year he created Option C, thus leading to his winning the world title. And then Aries says that because of his great plan, he will go on to cash in the X Division Championship, and he will go on to beat Bully Ray for the world title at Destination X on July 18th. Aries tells Hogan to come out so that he can give Hogan the X Division Championship belt. So Hogan comes out, and Aries tells Hogan that he is ready to hand over the X Division title. Hogan takes the title and says that Aries has taken things to a new high and a new low. Hogan says that Aries committed gimmick infringement when he stole Suicide's costume. But then Hogan says that instead of Option C being exercised now, it will be exercised at the end of the night. He says that the main event will be a three-way match for the X Division Championship. And Hogan says that one of Aries' two opponents is the man that he attacked last week. And then Hogan says that he changed his name. He is no longer Suicide. His new name is Manic. So Manic comes out, and he is wearing the same gear that Suicide wore, except instead of the word suicide across his chest, there is an abstract letter M. Then Hogan calls out Aries' other opponent, Chris Sabin. And Sabin comes to the ring. He takes the mic and basically rehashes the injury and rehab angle as he tells Aries that he is a scammer and vows to win the X Division Championship for a sixth time. And that basically ended that segment. Okay. Let me start with Suicide. Manic. I guess that TNA wants us to pretend that TJ Perkins being revealed as Suicide never happened. What other reason would there be to put TJ Perkins back in the Suicide gear and then proceed with a weak reinvention attempt? I mean, what would have been so bad about TJ Perkins competing as TJ Perkins? And if you're going to try to reinvent Suicide as Manic, then present him in different gear and make him look like someone new. I mean, you're going to put him back in the same gear? The same gear. Now this match will be a three-way match instead of the one-on-one match between Aries and Sabin that it should be. And I still feel that this was a missed opportunity by TNA because they could have put so much into a one-on-one match. had it been Sabin and Aries. And I'm saying that as far as the build-up, going back to last year's match, and then leading up to Aries winning the X Division title last week. You could have put so much focus into a match if it were a one-on-one matchup. So then we see Christopher Daniels backstage, and he's poking his head out of the dressing room door, and the unseen interviewer wants to talk to Kaz. So then Kaz briefly talks about his match with AJ Styles coming up, and then Daniels says that they have to get ready, and he slams the door. So then we have a Bound for Glory series match, Kazarian versus AJ Styles. And prior to the match, Bad Influence come out dressed as Siegfried and Roy. Decent match. Styles wins with the Calf Killer, and he earns 10 points, thus giving him a total of 12 points. So then we see Mickie James walking backstage, and she asks a crew member if he has the ladder set up, and he says he's working on it, and she tells him to hurry up. So then we see Chavo Guerrero and Hernandez backstage, and Chavo is pumping Hernandez up for his Bound for Glory series match, and Chavo is telling him that everyone is talking about him being a future world champion. Well, I don't know about everyone. And then Chavo tells Hernandez that he will be in his corner. So then we see Mickie James in the ring with the ladder set up. And then Mickie climbs the ladder. And as she does, she basically says that to get to the top of the women's division, you have to climb your way up. Then she talks about being a national recording artist and walking red carpets and being in national commercials. And then Mickie talks about facing the winner of the ladder match next week between Gail Kim and Taryn Terrell. And she says that she wants them to beat each other up, and says that she will eventually beat that number one contender and remain the champion. And I think that Mickie continues to do a fantastic job of exuding that sarcasm that she has been displaying. And you can just see that she's really enjoying it. And even in some instances, it's approaching the point in which you want to see her get taken down. And that basically depends on what your outlook is on heel demises. So then we see the gut check judges evaluating last week's match between Ryan Howe and Adam O'Reiner. And the gut check discussions are pointless to watch. They're just talking to hear themselves talk. And this leads into the gut check elimination segment. Ryan Howe and Adam O'Reiner are standing before the judges, and the judges eliminate O'Reiner. So Ryan Howe moves on to the decision segment of the show. And I really don't have any reaction to it because gut check has no meaning anymore. So then we see Kurt Angle, Sting, and Samoa Joe outside as they approach the arena. And Angle says that the next member of Main Event Mafia will be revealed. So then we have another Bound for Glory series match, Jay Bradley versus Hernandez. Okay match. The match ends with Bradley delivering a pretty sloppy backbreaker to Hernandez. And then Bradley sets up to deliver the boomstick when Chavo climbs into the ring and tries to grab his leg. Bradley turns toward Chavo as Chavo scampers back outside the ring. And then Bradley turns back toward Hernandez, and Hernandez hits him with a shoulder block and gets the pin. A shoulder block. And the winner of the match is Hernandez, and he gets 7 points, giving him 7 points overall. Now, Bradley did take a step back this week. He didn't really look as good as he did in his match against Aries. But there's still time for him to be more consistent with his performances. As far as Chavo and Hernandez go, it seems that Chavo is giving Hernandez one message, saying that he has what it takes to win the Bound for Glory series on his own, but then Chavo is sending another message saying that Hernandez can't achieve that unless Chavo helps him. So we see the possibility of this leading to maybe the eventual turn by Chavo, an eventual program between those two. So then we see Aces and Eights backstage, and Bully Ray gives Austin Aries credit for finding a way to get back in the world title hunt. And he says that he is surprised that Hogan didn't have something to do with the way Aries ended up becoming the X Division champion. And Wes Briscoe pesters Bully Ray with news that nobody cares about. And Bully Ray tells him that it's time for club business. Bully Ray mentions that the winner of the X Division title match will face him for the world title at Destination X. Then Doc asks Bully Ray who he wants to see win that match. The X Division match. And Mr. Anderson says that he doesn't think Bully Ray cares who wins because he can beat anyone anyway. And then Doc's reaction shows the heat that is continuing between him and Mr. Anderson. And then Bully Ray asks, what if no one won the match? And then they all laugh and they clink their bottles and drink. So obviously Aces and Eights is going to get involved in the main event match. So then we have a tag team match. We have James Storm and Gunner against the Glorified Jobbers, Robbie E. and Mr. Duh. It's a non-title match. Decent match. Only decent because Storm and Gunner are looking more like a tag team rather than two singles wrestlers, being thrown together to form a tag team. And their double teaming is looking more fluid, particularly the maneuver they used to win the match, which was like a combo neck breaker / slam on Mr. Duh. Now, Storm and Gunner need to face a team that is actually going to give them a challenge. Beating the Glorified Jobbers in a non-title match should end that crap. But TNA will likely find a reason to prolong it. I really would like to see Doc and Mike Knox be the team to go up against Storm and Gunner. Doc is carving out his own persona within Aces and Eights, and if Knox were given the opportunity, I think he would likely do the same. Aces and Eights are all about displaying their power in TNA, and championships, are an extension of that display of power. And there are no other tag teams, so this is something I think has to happen now. You could have Doc and Knox win the titles, and then Storm and Gunner could regain them at Bound for Glory. That's one possible scenario that they could do. But if that is going to happen, then we need to start seeing Doc and Knox as a tag team. So then we see Jeff Hardy backstage, and Hardy talks about his Bound for Glory series match coming up against dumbass Joseph Park. And he basically says that Park could be dangerous because, you know, he's related to Abyss, and Hardy just wants to get his points. So then we see Sting and Kurt Angle come to the ring. Angle gets on the mic and hypes up the crowd, and he repeats that the two goals of the Main Event Mafia are to destroy Aces and Eights and take the world title from Bully Ray. And then Sting gets on the mic and says that the Main Event Mafia of the past consisted of former world champions, and with that, there isn't the greatest unity. And then Sting says because of that, a no-nonsense approach led to this next member of the Main Event Mafia. And then Sting introduces Samoa Joe, and Samoa Joe comes to the ring. Okay, don't we already know that Joe is a member of the Main Event Mafia? I thought that was established last week. Let's see. He did the Main Event Mafia hand signs after he beat Mr. Anderson. And oh yes, Sting, you did give him a suit last week. Okay. I guess this is a formal introduction of Joe being a member of the Main Event Mafia. And let's go back to that no-nonsense approach that Sting spoke of. Well, isn't Joe a former world champion? So he really doesn't fit this no-nonsense approach. So Joe gets on the mic and basically says that for the last year he's been his own man, but he realized that there is strength in being with a group. And of course he references Aces and Eights. Joe says that he can't beat up that many cowards by himself, so he decided to join a crew who like beating up cowards. Joe says that with the support of Angle and Sting, he will go through everyone in the Bound for Glory series and go on to choke Bully Ray out and win the World Championship. And then Angle gets back on the mic and says that he picked Samoa Joe because of the matches they've had together, and that Joe is a badass and earned his respect. Angle says that he liked Joe's idea about the fourth member of Main Event Mafia. And Angle says that this wrestler is the here and now of TNA. And he introduces Magnus. Another guy that didn't come to help Sting at Slammiversary. Magnus gets on the mic and says that he needed like a half second to decide to join Main Event Mafia when asked. And Magnus points out that the fact that he is leading the Bound for Glory series is the reason why he took advantage of this opportunity. And then Magnus basically puts over all three guys and says that he signed up so that he can help put an end to Aces and Eights. So then Sting gets back on the mic and says that the Main Event Mafia are challenging Aces and Eights to a fight on July 18th. And then Sting says that because of Bully Ray saying that there won't be a winner in the X Division title match, the Main Event Mafia will ensure that there is a winner. Now I thought this was a good segment. I mean, all of this still could have been done with the same individuals without the formal presentation of guys in suits, and it still would have come off solid. And I thought Joe was especially strong here. But what happens if Samoa Joe and Magnus face each other in a Bound for Glory series match? Possibly a semi-final, if not a final match. So then we have another Bound for Glory series match. Jeff Hardy versus dumbass Joseph Park. The match was okay. The ending was so dumb. Park charges toward Hardy from the opposite corner, but Hardy hits him with an elbow to the face, and then Hardy goes to the top rope and executes the Whisper in the Wind on Park. And then Park gets to his feet, and his mouth is bleeding, and then he wipes his mouth and sees the blood, and it's Bruce Banner Green Eyes time. And then he turns around and Black Hole slams the referee. And then all of a sudden he snaps out of it, even though the blood is still on his mouth. Joseph Park is disqualified. So Hardy wins by DQ and he earns 3 points, which gives him a total of 10 points. And dumbass Joseph Park receives a negative 10 points, putting him at negative 10. For the record, the television title has not been defended since Abyss. I mean Abyss won it at Slammiversary. The TV champion is locked inside the brain of a dumbass that needs to see blood in order for any possibility of a TV title defense to take place. How stupid is that? And continuing the theme of stupidity, we have the decision segment of Gut Check. Al Snow says no. Danny Davis says yes. Bruce Pritchard says no. Ryan Howe doesn't get a contract. So, 2 consecutive gut checks in which no one gets a contract. Now, last week I said that gut check needed to be revamped from how it was being presented. I am going to scratch what I said last week. Gut check needs to be dumped, canceled, eliminated, destroyed. Because if there is no effort being put forth to treat this seriously, how can you improve on it? Get rid of it. So we see Aces Nate's backstage, and Bully Ray says that it's time for the main event, and they should go watch no one win. Doc stops Bully Ray and says that he will take out the main event Mafia single-handedly and that he should be the new vice president. And Mr. Anderson interrupts and reminds Doc that there will be a vote on the new VP next week. Bully Ray tells both of them that if they focus their energy on taking out main event Mafia instead of on each other, they wouldn't have to worry about them. And then Bully Ray says they should just do what they do, raise hell, wreak havoc, etc. Basically. And then they leave. And we see Aces and Eights heading toward the ring. And then we see a video segment promoting next week's ladder match between Gail Kim and Taryn Terrell. And the winner will be the #1 contender for the Women's Championship. Good promo, and definitely a match that I'm looking forward to seeing. And it would be refreshing if it were the main event. So then we have the main event. X Division Championship match. Austin Aries defending against Chris Sabin and Suicide. I mean, Manic. Aces and Eights are watching from outside the ringside area. Now, during the early part of the match, the focus gradually shifted to Sabin and Aries interacting with each other one-on-one. And Aries attempts a brainbuster on the ramp. Sabin counters it and drops Aries face first on the ramp. And then Aces and Eights makes their move toward the ring. Manic sees Aries and Sabin laid out on the ramp. He comes off the ropes, but then Mike Knox trips him. And then Manic propels himself over the top rope, but Doc catches him and power bombs him to the floor. And then Aces and Eights make their move toward Aries and Sabin, but then the main event Mafia comes out. Go to a commercial break. Coming back from the commercial break, Manic is being carried out on a stretcher, leaving Aries and Sabin in a one-on-one match. Once that happened, the quality of the match went from good to great. And during the action, each man executed his finisher on the other with kickouts both times. And Aces and Eights and the main event Mafia never got physically involved in the match toward the end. And then Sabin does an all hail Sabin on Aries off the top rope to get the 3 count. Chris Sabin wins the match and becomes the new X Division champion. And then he looks at Bully Ray and says that Bully Ray may very well be looking at the new world champion. And you kind of wish Sabin would just say, well, you are looking at the new world champion or the next world champion. However way he would have put it, instead of saying, well, you may very well be looking. How about you will be looking? But and the show ends. Despite the fact that this was a great match, TNA acted as if they had no control over making the X Division Championship match a one-on-one encounter between Chris Sabin and Austin Aries. I mean, it's obvious that this is what they wanted to do, because first Suicide Manic was gradually phased out of the action that was going on between Sabin and Aries. Then he was removed completely from the match. TNA wanted the one-on-one matchup between Sabin and Aries, but for some reason they felt restricted by their own 3-way rule. The X-Cam disappeared without explanation. The X Division qualifying matches disappeared without explanation. The 3-way rule could have disappeared without explanation. And we would have had what we should have had from the beginning. One-on-one Sabin versus Aries. Nevertheless, it was still a great match. And as Sabin prepares to challenge Bully Ray for the World Heavyweight Championship, Hogan continues to move his pieces on the chessboard. I'm Tazmart 2002, and that was my TNA Impact Analysis for July 4th, 2013. If you're listening to me on YouTube, please leave your comments below. Click the like or dislike button. And if you subscribe, I really appreciate it. If you're listening to me on the Wrestling News Talk Facebook page, you can also leave your comments below. You can click the like button if you like what I've been saying. If you have any questions about TNA or wrestling in general that you would like for me to answer, Get at me on Twitter, Tazmark2002. That's TAZMARK 2002. And if your comments exceed the 140, get at me with an email, Tazmark2002@gmail.com. Thought it was a solid show. Solid show. Greatly helped by Saban and Aries. I saw this video on YouTube. Dixie Carter being interviewed. The heading on the video said Dixie Carter, or something like Dixie Carter shoots on Hogan, and the quote says Hogan is not in control of TNA, or something like that. He's not in control of TNA, referencing Hogan. And I watched the clip, and Dixie really didn't actually say that quote. She was responding to Hogan's frustrations with the business side of TNA. But she implied that she was in control of TNA, not Hogan. But see, Dixie, how can you be in control of TNA when Hogan is in control of you? I'm Tazmark 2002, gone.